Welcome back to Sage Connections. Today's conversation is one I've been wanting to have for a while because it keeps showing up everywhere in podcasts, online, in conversations with friends, and honestly, inside our own heads. Modern dating feels confusing, heavy, and sometimes discouraging. And a lot of the discussion out there focuses on who's doing it wrong: men, women, apps, culture, timing. But what if the real issue isn't just behavior, it's belief? So instead of debating who's at fault, today we're talking about the myths that we quietly carry into dating, the stories we tell ourselves about age, timing, attraction, happiness, and what partnership is supposed to fix in our lives, and how those beliefs shape the way we show up. I'm really excited to welcome back Melissa Roberts, creator of Gumball Love. Melissa is a returning guest, and she always brings a thoughtful, grounded perspective to conversations about modern dating and partnership. I'm excited to unpack this topic with her because it affects so many people, often in ways we don't even realize. Enjoy. So, why does modern dating feel so much harder today than it did 10 years ago? People are struggling, it feels like, with the relationships themselves, meeting people, expectations that they bring to their relationships. What do you think of all this?
So I was thinking about this because if you think about ten years ago was 2016, 20 years ago was 2006. And so in 2006, if you wanted to do online dating, you had to do it on your computer at home, which is kind of crazy to think about it. So 20 years, you were limited to your computer at home. You had to sit there and figure it out, which kind of feels like, well, why is that a big deal? But in 2012 is when Tinder came out and that became an app on the phone. And then other dating apps followed that. So then it became more convenient. So, because I was thinking, you know me, I naturally don't want people to feel like, oh, it's harder, because if we think it's harder, it's going to be harder. If we mentally say that in our heads, then we will get more of what we focus on. So I firmly believe that. However, if we really look at why is it harder or what is going on, what are the shifts that are happening? I think that's the way I would rather frame it for people, just because you don't want it to start to feel so overwhelming. But if you think about how we became less social because of social media and apps, we became more virtual with our socialization. So when you are on an app and you meet somebody and then you end the relationship, nobody knows. So there's no social circumstances or repercussions for doing that. Where previously, pre-online, if you were dating somebody, people knew. If you met them at church, you met them through friends. It wasn't as easy to just ghost somebody, because people would be like, hey, Susie Q is asking what happened. And all of a sudden there were consequences. So removing those consequences and removing the social circumstances and the stigma and all of that creates an environment that I believe is very easy for people that are avoidant to intimacy. They are not great at relationships. It creates this environment where they can do those things more easily, and they can have more transactional experiences. It lends itself to that. So when I look at online dating, I think of it because when people say, why is dating harder, we automatically talk about online dating, which 20 years ago, online dating was still something you had to hide. You still felt embarrassed that you were doing. I remember I did online dating 20 years ago, and more than 20 years ago. And I was so embarrassed. I felt like such a weirdo because everyone would think you were a weirdo. It was just so taboo, or like, you're going to meet somebody that you've never met. I mean, I just remember people saying that. So we've also become, as a society, so we have to be careful. Like, every man isn't like this, every woman isn't like this, but we've also become more virtual, especially with COVID. That kind of made it to where, people don't want to leave their houses. And I totally am a homebody, so I completely relate. I love to be at home. And so if we're not in a community, if we're not hanging out with friends, if we're not out in real life, and then we're only in online dating, then we can kind of get into a world where we're only kind of communicating with, or we're communicating with a high majority of people that are using the apps to kind of hide and date without any kind of repercussions or accountability. That's what it is. Like, I can date and I'm not accountable. And so a lot of people will like that are the avoidance, that are the players, are the people that are in situationships, or the people that will ghost. This creates a very cozy environment to do that. So that people that really want relationships, we just have to keep that in mind and not assume that this is just, you're not being sentenced to online dating hell, but you need to be thinking about what this kind of environment can produce or create.
Yeah, because even it feels like even when you don't meet somebody through this online environment, that notion spills over, even when you think, oh, I met someone through, people that I trust, it doesn't mean you're not going to get ghosted. It doesn't mean that that it's going to go the way that it did 10, 20 years ago, which is really
Right.
interesting. But
That's true too. Yes. Just because your friend introduces you doesn't mean he's a great guy. That's a really good point too. I've been introduced by friends and they think he's a great guy because he could be a great friend, but he may not be a great partner. He could be a total player. I was introduced to a guy who was a massive player, and I'll just say my friends had no idea. So when I figured this out, it was like, well, he's not like that. And it was super awkward. So you do have to be mindful of this, regardless of how you're meeting people, because sometimes you're being introduced and those people may, even if they know them really well, they still don't know how they are in an intimate or romantic relationship. So very good point.
Absolutely. But let's go back to kind of what you started talking about, which is kind of the myths that we currently believe in. Because we want to put a positive spin on this because there is a lot of doom and gloom rhetoric
Yeah.
online right now about dating. Like you have these huge podcasters talking about how there's a mating crisis and a birth rate decline and incels and all this kind of stuff. And it does feel hopeless, but it sounds like what you teach and what you try to put it out in the world is the fact that we can choose the lens that we uh, look at this through, and not to be naive or Pollyanna-ish about it, to
Mm-hmm.
be aware of, what the pitfalls are. But at the same time, let's bust some myths here.
Yeah.
Let's see this through a different lens if we can. So I kind of have a few categories of myths that I want to talk to you about. So the first myth is sort of this scarcity myth, right? Like and pressure as well. So sentences or sort of statements like um what if there's like who else is out there, or I'm too old, or all the good ones are taken, like that famous kind of quote is like or like partners are like parking spaces, all the good ones are taken, all that's left is, well, whatever, fill in the blank, right?
Yes.
um or there's these cultural narratives that like men only want young women who are Instagram models, or even at this point AI, and
Mm-hmm.
no normal woman can sort of live up to those standards. Um, what do you think about those myths? And then there's one more after that, but I want to touch on these first.
So all the good ones are gone, or it just feels like, where am I going to meet somebody? That's the myth. Like, is that the one that we're looking at? Like, all
Yeah.
the good guys are gone, and this is going to be really difficult because, first I remember living under this idea that men don't want to commit, they don't want relationships because this is something that women want. And so if I want a guy to want this, I have to be really careful about this search. I mean, this was really driven home to us in like Sex in the City. Like, they made it seem like every guy was just like, oh, I don't want a relationship. So we have to approach this, be dumb like a fox, and all these things that give us this impression that men don't want it. And the ones that finally do are won over because they meet their dream girl. And you've got to be this high standard, this dream girl that looks like, oh, I'm not looking for a relationship either. I'm totally cool, whatever, And so I remember trying to think of like, okay, how can I just show up and look super confident? And I would like try to put on this outfit of looking that way. I'm going to be the dream girl. And but when you're trying to look like that, you look like a weirdo. And I finally realized how weird I looked, and I just cringed thinking back to what I was trying to do, because essentially we're trying to perform a person, a personality. We're trying to perform what we think they want. And this comes from those blanket statements that men want something. So I think you said it one time where you were like, what men want doesn't exist. Like that isn't a thing. Men do not want all of the same things. So that's a false thing. That we cannot say men are anything. We cannot say women are something. We're not all anything. We are individuals. So we have to keep that in mind first. But scarcity, just if you remember nothing else, scarcity sells. So if I am selling an app, I'm selling a magazine, anything, if I make you feel like there aren't very many left, and what I'm going to tell you is going to get you the thing that you want, I'm going to get your attention. How many times are we on Amazon and you're like, oh, this is cute. Oh, hurry up, 2 left. It's like, oh my God, it's like, what if there's 2 people on, they're going to buy, like, there are more than 2 left, but they just put that in red under. So you're just like a little bit more tense, right? So this is a lot of times what we think, our beliefs are coming from sales tactics. So we have to remember that, because we can think about it in terms of, yes, is the right person, or are there just tons of available partners on every street corner and every Starbucks? Is that a reality? Probably not, right? But that's what we think, because if we go a period of time and we don't see anybody or we don't connect with anyone, then we start to think all of these things are true. And that's why this stuff sells. So you have to think of that first. What am I looking at? Where have I heard this? Who's been telling me this? And why do I believe it? So, but then people might say, well, Melissa, I haven't had a date in X amount of years, or I haven't met the person. So this is why I believe it, because it's been difficult for me to find someone, right? So then I get into the actual focus on looking, or the feeling of, I have to have this, or my life isn't complete, or I'm not worthy. Because I know I spent a lot of time just looking at women, and I would first look at their ring, like their ring finger, like, are they married? And I would just think like, how do all these women do this? Like, what am I doing wrong? And I just felt like this outcast, because when everybody else gets married before you, or they find this relationship, it can become something we fixate on, that we fantasize about. And then all of a sudden we're consumed with looking. And when we get consumed with looking, it's just like, if you go to the mall and you're really looking, I just need a off-white tank top that has this kind of, whatever, like that, I'm going to wear this certain kind of bra. And then all of a sudden that type of top is nowhere to be found. But when you aren't looking, you will find it, right? And so there is something to that. I truly believe that, because if we get focused on it, we also are trying to force timing. It's like, I want it and I want it now. So I'm trying to force that into my reality, when that's not how it works. Like, you will find the right person for you when you are going about your life and you are happy doing what you do, and you've got momentum. Like I give one of my clients right now is a cycling teacher. And so I said, how when you're like, if you start climbing a hill in like 10th gear, it's really hard. But if you start at first gear and then you clip into second and third, and you build up, pretty soon that momentum gets easier and easier. And you're just moving along, and you're in a high gear. You have that momentum. And that's what it looks like when you're happy in your job, you're happy in your friend group, you're really enjoying life, you're doing things that you love and you enjoy, because that happiness in your own life attracts and makes you attractive to someone else who's also happy. Because we have this idea that the relationship, if I find the guy, then I'm going to be happy. That's probably the biggest myth that most people believe. Because if you are unhappy, I just saw this quote, love will amplify what you are. It will not fix. It will just make it bigger and make it really obvious. And you're gonna sit in that vulnerability. So when you think about, okay, I want to get myself to the place where if it's amplified, it's good. But if you feel lonely, if you feel unfulfilled, that relationship doesn't fill a void, which people think it does. But I will tell you that's the hardest lesson I had to learn.
So it sounds like one of the myths is actually looking harder isn't necessarily what's going to bring the connection faster, which is, I think, very counterintuitive, especially in our culture when we're taught to work harder, study more, work on ourselves, like do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you can accomplish anything if you work hard. That is the American motto
Yes.
and dream. But it sounds like in this area of life, what you're saying is that's actually a myth.
Yes. Because I have my notes here, so I want to make sure I get this right. So a relationship is a magnifying glass. It's not medicine. Okay. So that's number one. When you bring your happiness to a relationship, or sorry, you bring happiness to a relationship, you don't extract it from one.
Mhm.
So you want to think about what am I bringing to the relationship, not what is this relationship going, what can I extract from it once I get it? Because if you need him or her to make you happy, then you've made him an emotional hostage. And now he's responsible for your happiness and people can feel it. But when we come in and there's a void and we need that person to fill the void, a person who doesn't have a void to fill, they're already happy. They will notice that in 1 second because you'll pull instead of give. And that energy is glaringly obvious to someone who is happy, they are radiant, they are enjoying their life, they would love to share their lives with someone. It doesn't mean that you aren't happy, but what the research I did is that happy people find each other and get married. But an unhappy person doesn't meet a happy person and then get married. So you will become happier when you find the other happy person. Does that make sense? So it's like, so I can't be sad and lonely and fixated on finding someone and then, oh my gosh, then I'm going to be happy. But this is what we see in every show, every fairy tale, even Bridgerton. We have modern writers still writing the same stuff, even though they're kind of I always think about this when I'm watching Bridgerton, is we have this old fashioned story and there's still the fairy tale element. They're trying to make the women independent, but there's still this idea that there's the story is still, if you're unmarried, you're a spinster, you're unhappy, you're unworthy. You know what I mean? There's this identity attached to that. And so that creates this desperation and I've got to get this done. And when we do that, we attract someone else that's also in a similar situation. They're looking for the relationship to make them happy too. So then all of a sudden it feels suffocating. It feels off balance because you are responsible for your own happiness. But two happy people that come together do become happier together. It's about 20% happier when you have that dynamic. But just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean that. So everybody that's married doesn't have that because you have a lot of people that are unhappily married, right? So the relationship itself isn't the key. The people have to know what brings them fulfillment, what is going to make them feel alive. Because if I relied on my husband to make me feel alive all the time, that would be a tremendous burden on him. So I've got to do things. I'm doing the things now that I did when I was single to keep myself alive. And I know when I feel depleted, I know exactly what to do to fix it. I don't look to him to say, well, what are we going to do for a date night? Or, I'm not looking for romance to fill that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is the scarcity myth.
Yes.
So the truth is that there, it's not like there's somebody on every corner for everybody, but at the same time, there are people men and women who are looking for happy, steady, stable relationships
Mhm.
and actively looking for them in a desperation mode isn't necessarily going to, hone your radar onto them. If anything, it might steer you in the wrong direction for a little bit.
Yep.
Okay, myth number two, identity and self-worth. So this kind of comes along with statements like, being single means that there's something wrong with me, or independence is a rejection of partnership or protection from risk, or you know, how much control do individuals really have over relationship timing? So it's sort of this like identifying with like there's something wrong with me. If I don't have
Mhm.
it, that means that there's something wrong with me. It means that I don't want it enough. It means I'm not doing enough to get it. What do you think about that one?
I think again, it's too much focus on the relationship and not enough focus on what makes you happy. Because if we're just focused on getting the relationship, often people will meet someone, you could be attracted to them, you could have a good time with them, but if you're focused on the relationship making everything complete, then you're not really going to know what's compatible with you. So the idea of conquering solitude, which I really believe is the key, when you can conquer it and you are not lonely, you are not down, like, yes, you might feel it occasionally, but I went through this transition where I had to keep challenging it. Okay, if I feel sad and I feel lonely, then what fills that void? Because other things can fill that void. It's not only a partnership. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't long for it. It doesn't mean that you don't want it. It doesn't mean you don't desire it. But when it becomes that fixation that, why am I not good enough? What is wrong with me? That is a self worth problem. I don't feel worthy of this. I feel like I am incomplete without this relationship. That there is, if I feel like something's wrong with me without the relationship, then that means that I don't feel worthy, period, the end. And if you don't feel worthy and you don't get to the bottom of that, Brene Brown figured this out. Those who feel worthy of love have love. If you don't feel worthy of it, you won't have it. And that is all of her work is about really looking at, why don't I feel worthy of it? What is it that I think is going to be rejected? So that's when you're really feeling like fear of rejection, which then feeds into attachment style. Am I avoiding this relationship because I feel like the thing that's wrong with me is ultimately going to be the thing that brings me back to this place? So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when I was doing some research earlier too, it was interesting that, because I know that when people achieve that secure attachment, they don't fear being single and they end up having a partner. But one thing they don't do is they don't stay with the wrong people for too long. They still can be sad about that person being the wrong person, but they move on quickly. And so they might be frustrated, but they don't feel unworthy and they don't linger with the wrong people. And those are the challenges I help with in my coaching practice of really learning what those things are. So you're not lingering and hoping with people that really don't have the capacity or the ability to achieve intimacy. So there's two sides to it. Sometimes we're with a partner who seems like they're almost there, but you just keep working and working and working and you're not making progress. And that can make you feel like there's something wrong with you, but it's the wrong partner. And so that can really drive it. And then if you sit in that for too long, you start to believe that. So that your worth and your value it comes from what you believe about yourself. So if I believe it, then I'm for sure going to stay single until I change that belief, because the knight in shining armor doesn't come in to make you feel worthy and change your self perception. That will not happen, I assure you. It will just amplify it, because when the right person comes into your life or a really great person comes into your life, and they want to love you. If you don't feel lovable and worthy, you will be you won't be able to receive it. It will all of your insecurities will come out, and all of a sudden you'll there are those people that are like, I have this great person, but I don't know what's wrong with me. You will start to reject it because you're rejecting yourself, which
So
is
it
very
sounds
deep,
like,
but that is true.
yeah. So it sounds like a horse before the cart. Like we have to figure out which one's the horse, which one's the cart. And it
Yes.
sounds like the myth is putting your worth and identity into the bucket of relationship first and foremost. When in reality, it's your worth is your worth. It's sort of separate from your relationship status. And then once you can separate the two, you can find a partner that um, I guess doesn't shake your worth, your self-worth, right?
Yes, because when you know what you're worth and you're comfortable in your own skin, you are living the life that is aligned with who you are, then the right partner becomes a lot more obvious. Because if I'm not really living the life that's aligned to me, and then I meet someone, I can think that they're great, but I don't really know if they are right for me because I'm not living the life that I really should be living. I'm not really having the confidence that I need to have. And so I'm not experiencing the relationship and I'm the way I really need to because the real me isn't showing up. And this is the one thing that I realized the most in my history. What I realized in my clients is that, oh, I'm my authentic self isn't showing up. So I can't evaluate this person because I don't really know what I need, what I want, what's going to work. But when you do the work, when you figure out your life, what do I really want to do? Where do I want to live? What makes me come alive? Then when you're dating, the it's so easy for you to say, oh yeah, this isn't going to work. He's great, but there's no way this is going to fit. If you're someone who loves to travel, you cannot be with somebody who never wants to travel, right? Like that, you just have to. And this is what secure people are comfortable. They're comfortable letting go of great people because they know that that person's great, but they're not great for me. And that mentality just keeps them on the course for attracting who that person is. And when you attract that person into your life and it aligns, they can feel that they're right for you. And if you're right for them, then that's when it really just clicks because everything, your hobbies and interests, everything doesn't align, but you can really feel that it's a great fit in a lot of areas and that for sure, okay, this is something I can really consider. So that's the thing we don't think about. It's like we think about how am I going to be happy when I just want to have a relationship? I just want to move forward to that next phase of life. But it's not trying to be happy being alone. That's not what you're doing. It's not like you're saying, I have to just say, okay, I'm just going to give up and be alone. I guess that's the life. No, that's not what it is. It's about figuring out what fills those voids because once you understand that the person is not going to do that for you and it's only going to amplify it. I know when I realized that scared me. And I thought, oh, I don't want to turn off a potentially great partner because I'm still trying to fill the void.
Yeah. So we touched on this a little bit, but the next myth is sort of the happiness myth, which is that, once I meet somebody, all my problems are just going to vanish and I'm going to be so happy and everything is
Yeah.
going to be amazing and there will be rainbows and chirping birds. I think that there's a myth that a relationship removes loneliness. And I don't, I'll let you speak on that.
So I think the great news is when you really know who you are and you find a partner that aligns with you, you will have so much fun because you'll be with a partner that you laugh with, that gets you, and that you can be not only your full self, but the right partner brings out even more of you. What is it? Dr. Seuss says something about being a Yui or you. I don't know. There's some kind of phrase in his book where you want a person that it's like your best friend. If you're a girl watching or a guy, like you're like your BFF, that person you could just be so goofy with, and it doesn't matter. You can be unfiltered. You can be in the worst mood or the best mood. It doesn't matter. It's the full expression of you can be there at any time, and you have complete freedom. So this is the goal of really figuring all of this out, is that you are free. I love to say free to move about the cabin. Like you're free to be who you are. Because if I am trying so hard to find the guy, and then you find a great guy, right? But you don't know who you are. And then you learn about him. And then he says something that, ooh, I don't like that. But I better not say that, because then he's going to think, oh, I can't be with her if she doesn't like that. So then you start performing that you are compatible, and you start pushing some of those things aside, or maybe you don't even know what you like. And suddenly you're now performing, but someone who knows who they are, they're gonna feel something's off. They're gonna feel a mismatch, because you can't love everything your partner loves. You can't be everything. You're going to have differences, but those differences also create polarity. And so you might be really into art where the other person hasn't really looked at art at all, and that interest of yours sparks something in them. Or they could be really interested in a type of music that you're like, I don't know, I've never listened to that kind. And then they kind of get you into it, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess I do like this. It's those kinds of little things that keep interest and keep things exciting and keep igniting that spark. So really uh you want to be really connected to all of those things, so that when you're sharing and you're growing and all of these things are happening in a relationship, you're fully showing up as who you are. So it's like, yes, you will have so much fun, you will enjoy it, it will be great, if you do the work prior to really make sure you're ready for it, and that you show up your real self. I mean, ultimately you just need to show up the real you, which sounds like, why can't we do this? But it's really tough to be like, who am I really? Even on social media, we show up and it's like, if I record something, sometimes I'm like, who was that weirdo that was just on that clip? I have to like redo it and be like, okay, Melissa, be your real self, because that wasn't her. That was somebody else. And it's because you get into a performance mindset. And it's really hard not to do that when it's somebody you're attracted to. It's like I always say, it's always easy to play all these things when it's like a George Costanza. But when it's like the guy that makes your, heart flutter, then all of a sudden resisting the temptation to perform and try to be everything he wants, that's what all the work on really figuring out who you are, what you like, because then you don't need them, right? It's like, now I'm dating. I don't need you to make me happy. I'm happy. So now it's like, what do you bring to the table? You have a more like, instantly I just sat back in my chair, because it feels like, now it's like, okay, now I can relax. And you know what you can do is you can flirt, because when you're relaxed, that's when flirting is so natural. Flirting isn't dropping a little handkerchief and flipping your hair, and that's dingy flirting, and only dumb guys fall for that. But if you want a guy that's actually smart, actually has something to offer, then your flirtation and your banter is going to be expressing likes and dislikes and being able to make fun of each other. And all of that stuff that happens only happens through authentic, real communication that's actually like, okay, really? You like Star Wars, or really you like Star Trek, or whatever? Like those kinds of things are what spark those fun conversations that don't happen if we're in this scarcity lack mode that, oh my God, there's nobody left. And this is the only guy. It's like, if I think this is the only guy, then I'm going to try so hard to accept it, because I think, there's only one left in stock, and I've got to just take it, or I'm going to lose it.
Yeah. It's not my
Yeah.
size or my color, but it's the last one. So I'm just going to squeeze into it and hope one day
Yeah.
I'll lose weight, or it like stretches out, or, vice versa, whatever. Right.
Yeah. And we've all brought that guy like around our family, and they look at us like, what is going on? And later they were
Yeah.
like, I
Well,
don't
they're
know
like,
what. We
huh,
were like,
him?
whoa, who? Yeah. You
Really?
hear what they really think later, and you're like, oh God, I know. I'm so embarrassed now because yeah, he was the one that was left. And look, you have to think about that guy too. I don't want to be picked because he thinks I'm the last one. He's trying to force it. I don't want somebody to do that to me either. I want them to feel like, hey, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So you got to reverse that too and think about, oh, what would it feel like if somebody was like, well, I don't know, she's nice, but I don't really
Oh,
like
yeah.
this or this, but I'll try to work with it because I want to get married and have kids. I mean, it's just okay, I'm going to force it with the person I'm going to spend 99% of my time with. It's like,
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
crazy
that's
when you think
settling.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, last myth for today, because there's a million of them, but
Yes.
misreading feelings. So if you feel anxious while dating somebody, does that mean that they're wrong for you? Why do we expect like instant certainty? I think is a big myth. I think we've watched so many shows and read so many books where it's like people see each other across a room and they just like recognize each other and you're good to go. And that does happen sometimes. But I
Mhm.
also think we've gotten to this point, partly because of online dating, where we're looking for somebody to check this list off in second one of meeting them.
Yeah.
When in reality, like we don't look for that in any other interaction. Like you never meet a new friend and have this long list of what you need your friend to
Yeah.
do or be or like. You
Yeah.
discover things along the way. And the same thing is true for partners. Your partner might not be, might not check off all 100 things on your list in the first day,
Mhm.
month, year, decade, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
um, I think that myth is definitely out there that like I'm gonna know immediately, and they're gonna also meet every single one of my emotional needs.
Hmm.
They're just going to be perfect and I'm going to know and they're going to know. And if it's not that, then I have to keep going.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from? That instant knowing?
I think it's the fairy tale of love at first sight.
Hmm.
It's all the Disney stuff that like look at Ariel. She saw a statue of Eric that fell in the
Right.
ocean. Like it wasn't even a real human that she was like in love. She kind of peeked at him, but she was in love with like his statue essentially. And why? She didn't know him. What if he was a jerk? What if he smelled weird?
Yeah.
What if, like,
Yeah.
um,
It's like, let's talk about the personalities of Disney princes and what we know about them. That would be a really funny exercise for women to like, who was Eric? No one knows.
right. Who was Eric? Who was Prince Charming? Who was,
Right.
I don't even know half their names. That's the other thing. It's like
Yeah.
they're this cardboard cutout mannequin type uh stand-in for all of these things, right? And
Yes.
she was sleeping or she was dead and he kissed her and then
Right.
happily ever after. Like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
There's no like what do you like for breakfast or like
Hmm.
I don't, you know what I mean?
Yes.
There's this like very this thing that we've been fed that we're just supposed to know. And I think
Hmm.
that's true in stuff that I do as well, where like, I deal a lot with not deal. I treat a lot of women who are pregnant and postpartum. And that's
Hmm.
also this like myth that you're just supposed to know. You're just supposed to know how to have a baby and you're just supposed to know
Yeah.
how to breastfeed and you're just supposed to know all of it.
Yeah.
And that's just not true or possible. And we lost a lot of knowledge when we sort of um disconnected from the tribe, sort of the group kind of setting that we were in for a long time. And so maybe when we were in that kind of setting, we also knew more about true relationships and interactions.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So this is a question that I struggle with because when I met my husband, I felt feelings. I had butterflies. If you listen to the podcast, my eyes, like my pupils literally dilated to a crazy level. Now, I had I had seen his profile, and he was everything I was looking for. So I already knew that I you know how when it's online, you just know you're like, you know what, when you're online, sometimes you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be attracted to him, but then there are those that you're like, I know I'm going to be attracted to them, so I'm going to try to not be a weirdo. Like that's where I was with my husband. So that I don't think is a bad thing. Okay, it's not the worst thing ever. Like you will talk to a lot of people that met their spouse and they did have a magical feeling. They had a feeling, right? They didn't know them. They didn't know everything would be that it would work out, but they had that feeling. So I don't think that we have to just say that real love is boring and regular and you have to settle, because happily married people do not tell you to do that. Only the people, I think, that married people they aren't attracted to and they settled, those are the people that give you that kind of advice. They'll say, well, you can't have everything. And, you're going to have, they'll have this kind of a negative view of it. And I used to think, okay, well, maybe that's the way it is. But as I observed those people, I thought, yeah, they don't have the best relationships. The people that have the best relationships will say, you've got to be attracted. You've got to have the sexual chemistry. You got to have the heat. You got to have that stuff. So it's not that it shouldn't be there or that it won't be a part of your experience, but it's not going to be like, okay, we met and everything's done. And you know what? We're just perfect for each other, right? Because the whole adventure of getting to know each other and learning about it, there's so much fun to be had in the process. So, like, I mean, every time I talk to my husband where we exchange, I would, even if it was a text message or we were on the phone, I just loved how he worded something, how he said it, how his humor would interpret it. So all the interactions were just fun experiences of listening to how his mind would work. And still to this day, it's like he's the person I want to talk to and tell something to, because it's still, there's still all of those elements are there. They don't just drop off because infatuation is over, right? So there is infatuation. We can enjoy it, but it is very dopamine driven, right? It's dopamine. And for women, we release oxytocin really quickly. So we feel more bonded very early than guys do. They can be attracted, they're into you. They don't have that, like, oh my God, she's the one and I feel so bonded and I can't, like, they don't get that necessarily right away. It takes them a little bit longer. In fact, it takes them about, we'll say 8 to 12 weeks. So ladies, be thinking about that. When you think I'm going to jump in the sack and week 1 or week 2, he's not there yet. He might say, I love you, but he might just love you naked, but he's not falling in. He's not just the neurochemical process doesn't happen as quickly for men that are capable of bonding. And some are capable of bonding and some are not. That's another podcast. But you want to be thinking, and you have to spend regular time around each other. So you have to spend at least 6 hours a week with someone, with a guy like a man and woman. If they don't spend at least 6 hours a week, so you need to be having at least a nice long date or two in person every week in order for that bond to build to where you're falling in love within 2 to 3 months. It takes about 2 to 3 months for a couple to at least get to that point where they're like, I am falling in love with you, or I want to express that to you. And then at that point, you're still just at the very beginning, but now you're dating from that foundation. So when you think about it in those terms, think of it as like, okay, for the next 2 to 3 months, I'm going to get to know this person, and it's going to happen the way it happens. I don't think anyone can tell you how your love story is going to unfold. Nobody has all the answers. But I don't want people to, when we assume everything is done in the very first meeting, you miss out on the whole courtship. You miss out on all the fun things that are going to happen in between. And you're going to look forward to those and it'll just keep getting better and better. So what doesn't happen is you're not sure what's going to happen. You're not waiting. He's not making you chase. You don't have to play the game. You don't have to make him want you. All of that stuff is, again, to drive sales and keep businesses that want you coming back to them for advice. So you want to solve the problem at its core, so you don't need those people anymore telling you that there's only one left and there's nobody great out there. Like that, all of it's not true. It's all lies. And the people that don't believe those lies are the people that end up finding love. So that's what you have to just keep having faith in. Like follow what the people did that found love. Follow the people that have the evidence. There's a lot of people that don't have the evidence of it that give the most advice. I think the people in the worst relationships sometimes are giving all of this advice. And so then we think like, oh, real love is boring and I have to settle. And maybe I should give the ugly guy that I'm not really attracted to, but maybe I'll go. It's like, no, you don't have to do that. Why would you do that? You are much better off single than trying to force yourself to like somebody that you already don't like. Like, what would be the point of that? Then you're going to try to have kids with the person that you're also not attracted to. Like, it's great with the right person, but I think anyone who's married and has children will tell you it ain't that. It's never going to be that great with the wrong person. Doing that with the wrong person is so much harder, as it's hard enough with the right person, right? It's challenging. All of these things are challenging, but with the right person, it's worth it, right? Because you have a true partner. But without that, then you're basically still lonely, but there's somebody in the room. And I think that's the worst kind of loneliness, when you're sleeping next to somebody, but you're still lonely.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily the myth of like there's no such thing as love at first sight or lust at first sight or limerick, whatever it is, like excitement at first sight. I think the myth
Mm-hmm.
is that not only will you have that initial attraction, but also you will know everything about them and it will fit perfectly in your little container that you created for
Mm-hmm.
it. And, I think there is something to the notion of giving it time and exploring that person and the excitement of actually learning these things about them instead of getting like a list on the first date, like this is my resume, this is what I bring to the
Yeah.
table, what do it's like then it becomes like a business transaction or something. But
Well, actually, if you assume, like, let's say someone meets you and they think that you're everything that they've ever wanted, they have not had near enough time to know you. So, what they've done is they have fallen in love with a projection or a fantasy. So, if that actually happens, where we feel like that I'm going to just know, then we're just projecting a fantasy of who they are without actually knowing them.
yeah.
So that's what's actually happening. I used to say, don't marry him before you meet him, because we can fantasize so much about someone before we meet them, then we project an entire false identity onto them. And then if they're really good looking and you're attracted to them, you start falling for a different version. And so that's the danger in that. You want to make sure you're falling in love with who they are, along with their good looks and the chemistry and their beautiful eyes and luscious lips and all those things. Like, all of those are bonuses. But if you fall in love with the projection, then the reality of that person will start to be disappointing, because there's no dopamine in that, right? You're eventually, that's going to start to be disappointing because you're holding a different picture of who they are in your mind.
So if people let go of these myths, which we're hoping they do, because I feel like we did a good job of debunking a lot of these, how do you think that would change dating behavior? Like, what mindset actually helps people build a healthy relationship today? And I think you touched on a lot of that, but just to kind of like tie it all in a beautiful little bow.
Yeah, if people really figured out who they are and what they want, and they just showed up the weirdos that they really are, we're all just some version of a weirdo, right? But your friends right now love you because of all of your weird stuff. Like, you have people you can talk to and you can say the funniest things. It's the people that you send the memes that are inappropriate and hilarious. Like, those are the people that get you. And so if everybody just showed up exactly who they are, and they just said, you know what, this is me, take me or leave me, but I've got to find somebody that can just be with me, and they could get confident in that, then it would change everything, because then we would stop wasting time with the wrong people. We'd start connecting with the right people. And then you're going to have kids that have parents that have that in common. I mean, just think of children growing up with parents that are excited to be with each other, that are best friends, that are laughing together. I mean, eventually, this would be like world peace, right? Like everybody would be in, all the kids would have healthy attachment, and people would grow up so differently and without all the trauma and the burdens that uh being children of parents that didn't get along. It's just, there's so much baggage that we have to unload from that, and so many false beliefs. So it literally changes everything. It changes your whole world. And once you get into that frequency, you start to see, oh wow, okay, I can totally tell how I was just showing up an imposter. I mean, literally, most people are imposters on dates because we feel insecure about who knows. We think we're too fat. We think we're not. We think we're too old. We think we're not pretty enough. We think that the guy wants the blonde when we're the brunette. We think he wants the brunette when we're the blonde. Whatever. We always think people want something else instead of being like, what about the guy that wants me? What about the girl that just wants what I have to offer? Because they exist. But if you don't believe that they do, then you just keep getting more of the same, right? It's just like Joe Dispenza, all the laws of attraction. I mean, I just see it more and more. It's more evident. What you believe your reality to be is what will come to you. Like Joe Dispenza says, if you want to change your personal reality, you have to change your personality. And so that personality is all constructed with beliefs and experiences. And so it's like, I want to come to the date with enthusiasm and excitement for life and what I'm doing. I don't want to perform for a guy who gets bored of what I'm talking about. So it's like, if he gets bored, I'm not going to date that guy anymore, because that's a thing that I used to do. Oh, he thinks this is boring. Let me change the subject. The new Melissa, I was like, oh, he's bored. I'm going to tell a longer story just to see if I can really max him out. And then I'm going to be done dating this guy. That's what I started doing, because I thought, I want to be with somebody who doesn't really want me. Like, what am I doing? It was like this big aha moment that shifted. But man, it's so liberating, and you're just free to live your life. And then there's a magic. This is what I call X factor. There's a magical shift that happens when you're just like, I don't care anymore. I'm good. If this is the way I live my life, you know what? I'm good with this. And you know what? If I never met anybody, I could be happy here. It's not your first choice, but if you get your life where you're like, this isn't bad, I think I could do this. That's when you meet someone, because you're the happiest, you're the most magnetic, and you're ready to have so much fun building a life with someone. So obviously I could go on and on, but I believe it wholeheartedly, because I walked that road for so long, and I walked it the hard way. And yeah, so if I had to start over again, that's exactly what I would do, because your happiness and you finding that happiness truly, like, what lights me up? What would I do if I won the lottery? Those are the things, like the things you would do if you won the lottery, the things that matter to you. Those are the things that light you up. The things that you lose time, like, oh my God, I can't believe 4 hours has gone by. That's the stuff that, start doing more of those things. And then you get more of that in your life. And that's where happiness is.
Beautiful, beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
being only one of two returning guests so far.
Woo.
Yeah, very much appreciate your input. I think these conversations are just so fascinating for so many people who are in this boat or know people in this boat and just need direction and a new lens. So thank you
Yeah.
for giving us that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Melissa Roberts, creator of Gumball Love, for coming back and sharing such an honest and thoughtful perspective today. These conversations can be uncomfortable sometimes, but they're also the ones that help us see ourselves a little more clearly and hopefully approach dating with a bit more compassion for both ourselves and each other. If this episode resonated with you, consider sharing it with a friend or someone who might need to hear it too. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, leaving a rating or review really helps more people find these conversations. Thank you for being here. And until next time, take care of your health and your wellness.